Alright, so nagbabalik tayo sa ating violin tips and tricks. And for today's video, let's talk about the initial attack or your first stroke. Ano ba yung kailangan natin gawin to set up your first stroke in every piece, no? So ano yung mga kailangan nating i-check, things that you need to look for before you even start playing. Okay? So, a lot of people kasi think that when you start playing, just play. No? Whether your bow is from above or on the string, you can start anywhere. That's like the common misconception. But in reality, if you just mindlessly start playing, you won't have control over your tone. No? Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of scientific principles behind tone production that could help you out, no? And when you are starting out, when you're playing whatever piece that is, if you may be starting with a long quarter or half note, or you may start with 16th notes na spiccato or whatever, you should always start your bow on the string. Okay? Why is that so? Kasi imagine that your bow is not actually just hair, no? Akala kasi natin smooth yung hair, di ba? It's actually pretty rough. And that the hair that we use on the bow has like small claws, no? For lack of a better term, that cling to your strings. No? Yun yung nagpapatunog. That friction caused by that rough patch of surface on your bow that clings on to the string. So, think about it as a guitar. When you pluck a guitar string, it vibrates, it resonates. And then, on the bow, it's the same principle, just a different application. So, it's like the same thing, nagpa-pluck siya on its own. Diba? Marami kasi siyang nagpa-pluck ng sunod-sunod, making your string vibrate. Diba? So, that's the main principle on how it works. Now, being able to set up your first stroke will tell you a lot about not just your instrument, but the overall tone quality that you can produce in a certain situation. Okay? So, paano nga ba dapat tayo unang mag-stroke? Ano yung gagawin natin for our initial stroke? Okay, so you first have to have this sort of checklist. No? So, first thing is that, is your bow in contact with the string that you want to play in? Diba? So, that yun muna i-check mo, nakakapit na ba siya? Kasi minsan, even though we are on the string, the contact point of that bow and string is not enough. Diba? Kaya minsan, lumalabas yung tunog, nagiging sliding yung una. Medyo airy, no? If you don't want that, pero minsan yun yung lumalabas, it's because that hindi talaga kumapit yung bow. So, your bow should be in contact. Maramdaman mo yung tinatawag nating bite. It's biting onto the string. It's clinging on. No? So, that is, kumbaga yun yung starter ng friction. Without that contact, you won't get the most efficient and loud and great sound that you could produce. No? Kasi, parang tatansyahin mo yun if that happens, pag hindi ka ready. No? If you just put it and then play, versus thinking about putting it and then playing. Okay? So, that's one thing. Make sure that your bow is in contact with the string. You could feel that bite. How do you practice that? Siyempre, lalapag mo lang siya. Okay. Now, akala rin ng iba, pag nilapag, okay na. No? But, it's not just the action, but how your hand moves right after. So, when you put down your bow, no, you have to also follow through with it, with your arms. Okay? I'm not saying you should lower your elbow. I'm not saying that you should drag down your bow. But you just have to make sure that where your hand is going, that's the direction the bow is going as well. Kaya nga, di ba, yung iba pinapaikot talaga nila just to put it down properly. Because this motion is what you're doing when you're technically going for a down bow. Di ba? Binabagsak mo siya. You're dragging it. You're pulling it to the direction that is downwards. Kaya nga tayo sabi na down bow. Same thing when you're going for an up bow. You have to make sure that your contact is going up. No, the direction it's in contact with wants to move up. No? So whether that's a down bow or an up bow, you have to make sure na maramdaman mo yung pressure na yon. It doesn't need to be super scratchy, it just needs to be in contact. And you can feel that connection between your bow and the string. Okay? Another thing is that the direction niya. Ayun. So, medyo natakal na rin natin. Which direction you are going? Are you going for an up bow or are you going for a down bow? Now, this personal bow hold that I have, no, is very reliant on my fingers, no, sa bowing ko. If your bowing is not too reliant on your fingers, try to find other parameters that you can use. Paano mo malalaman na pa-down bow ka or paano mo malalaman if you're going for an up bow, no? So for me, it's my fingers that tell me that. So it starts with my fingers. If I curl up my fingers, I'm going for a down bow. So the direction of the bow changes. So for example, we're in a very neutral position, middle bow, okay? Minsan kailangan natin mag-start anywhere, no? So you have to understand how much pressure you need for that contact to happen. And then now, if I'm starting here and I want to do a down bow, I have to align my hand to go for a down bow. Diba? Merong konting changes na mangyayari sa bow natin versus if I'm going for an up bow. Okay? May konting pag-tilt and that's normal because we have to move in two separate directions and they have different feel, different sound na mapoproduce. Diba? So, an up bow generally creates a softer tone from the start. Okay? So, mas mahina siya. Versus a down bow creates a louder tone from the starting point. So, this is my up bow kung mag-start ako dito. And this is my down bow. So, it will depend on the piece that you're playing. So, you have to understand ano ba yung kailangan mo. Which stroke is the first stroke that you are going to use. Diba? And pag nalaman mo na yon, you have to angle your bow into that direction. Make sure that the bow will follow your hand. Okay? Marami kasing ganito. Okay, magda-down bow, but the hands are stretched out like this. So, ano nangyayari? Hindi siya sumusunod. Nagiging scratchy or squeaky yung sound because your hand is not going to follow the direction where the bow wants to go. So, para siyang, kumbaga sa kotse, tumatakbo ka abante ng naka-handbrake. Diba? You have your handbrake on, but you're trying to move forward. So, ganyan yung nangyayari. That's why merong scratchy sound because there's too much opposing force or opposing pressure going on to the direction you're trying to move to. That's why you need to follow. Again, I'm saying this for my bow hold, my personal bow hold, my preferred bow hold is that I use my fingers as a guide. So if I'm going for a down bow, I would curl down my fingers. Again, it goes down. Okay? That's for me. And if you are also using the same bow hold, no? So this is a down bow. And then for an up bow, you want to move up. Okay? And I want you to take note that I'm not locking in my fingers. No? Hindi siya nakalock. I can still move them properly. No? So, I still have control over those things. No? It's never going to lock up. And then, that's the time you can move. Kasi okay na, nakakonta ka na, alam mo na yung direction, kontrolado mo na siya. So that's how you could start doing your practices, no? For example, mag-open string practice ka. You wanna start with the down bow and you wanna create the loudest sound possible. So, you try to find first again the contact point, no? Yun, sama mo na rin kung saang part siya ilalagay, but the contact, the bite is important, and then the direction, and then the motion. See? So, it's not bahala na. Hindi pwedeng, basta tutugtog ka, nakaganyan. That's why I always try to tell my students to always keep your bow in contact with the string, whatever stroke that may be. unless it is really required to knock you on the string. Because there's no reason for having it on top if you're gonna play here. Diba? So, yung iba kasi ganito, mag-start na yung playing, nakaganito yung bow. Tsaka ilalapak, diba? You don't have enough control because hindi mo natansya, hindi mo na natimpla. No? You have to find a way to make it sound what you want it to sound. No? You have control over your bow. You can control your bow, and you can only do that if it reaches the strings. Okay? Sabihin nila, paano kung bouncy or paano kung brushed stroke? Okay. Paano kung ganun, spiccato? I'm still here bago ako umangat. So, kinontak ko muna siya. Dumikit muna ako, di ba? I always start there. Huh? O, paano kung magbabrush? Start ka pa rin dito? Kasi kailangan mo munang malaman yung feel before you play it, right? The feel of how much force you need, how much bow you're gonna use, how long, diba? Yung mga ganong factors. And you can only do that if you understand that connection. How do you start playing? Diba? Because if you don't try that out, laging chamba yung magiging tunog. It will always be a hit or miss. And we try to minimize those risks when we try to play, diba? Kaya gusto natin, makakuha na agad natin yung control na kailangan when we start playing. So try it out, no? Have this small little checklist before playing. Take your time, set it up properly so that you can play beautifully. Okay? So kung natutunan kayo sa video na to, please do drop a like, comment down below more content you'd like to see, and of course subscribe to my YouTube channel for more violin tips and tricks, covers, and everything under the sun. Also, check out all my socials, links down in the description box below. This has been Ryan Monakil for Violin Tips and Tricks, and I'll see you on the next video.